Welcome back to TheChowTimePod. It's your host, Red. We got videos today from Sunly Salty. Traditional man exposes the hypocrisy of red pill ideology. What? Please just drop them below. I really appreciate that. Let's get that chow. It's chow time. Shout outs to you guys for suggesting this video to me. It wasn't on my radar, but you guys wanted my input, so let's get to it.
What age range you want to date?
Legal age.
That is an awkward answer.
Age. What the hell that mean, Joseph? That don't sound good.
It didn't. Her intro's better than mine.
Welcome back to Liminal Period. It's your girl, Chun-Li Shoddy. So I came across a clip from the Whatever podcast that I wanted to share with you guys, and it's related to age gap relationships. I was interested.
I've watched this clip. I watch a lot of Whatever podcasts, but I don't usually react to the Whatever podcast just because I don't think very many people care to watch my reaction on them. But I've watched this one by myself, and I thought it was interesting. So let's see what her take is on it.
In this conversation because I myself have been involved in a number of different age gap relationships. I'm
really, I wouldn't have guessed.
Honestly not even 100% sure what the gap needs to be in order for it to be considered an age gap relationship. But when I first saw this video, I kind of felt some type of way about it because the age that they are describing is actually the same age I was with the guy I was dating. I saw this video, but
of course, it's always the people that were originally young that had older boyfriends and older men that get older. Now they seem to feel a way about it, but even when they were at that age doing it, they didn't feel any way about it.
But I guess I wanted to share it because I think sometimes conversation within the manosphere or the red pill community can be so extreme, and I think sometimes it can be disingenuous because of how far extreme they go. And I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense, but that's
not really. I'm a little bit confused with what you're trying to say because there are extreme people, but the red pill itself is not an ideology. Stop thinking that it's an ideology. It's just showing men the truth of women nature and all of these things. There's no ideology behind it.
That's why I wanted to share the video. So without further ado, let's get into it.
It's predatory. It's extremely predatory.
How's it predatory? And
to target younger women because they have less experience. So that's something that like abusers and groomers purposely say they look for victims. They look for people that are less experienced.
Went straight to it.
This is the feminist loaded language. So
you earned that green in your hair.
Yeah.
So you use the term targeted, predatory, right?
Yes.
So couldn't I just say that women target wealthy and successful men and they're predatory for targeting wealthy and successful men?
Yeah.
Or is it just the reality, the sort of evolutionary biological reality that women tend to be attracted to men of status, men of means? There's a couple reasons there. One, a guy high status could have certain benefits to her and her children, right? So why is that any different than men preferring a younger woman who would be a better partner because she's
not a better partner because she's younger. She's just easier to manipulate. They
don't even want to acknowledge that they can be better partners. Oh, they have the possibility. No, it's just straight up going to the predatory side of things, period. Even though some of them are in age gap relationships, they always just see the predatory side. They don't ever see, oh, it's normal. This is what people kind of want.
Genuinely a thing.
Okay, so I just want to chime in real quick because I think, again, is another argument based off of semantics. Okay, and what I mean by that is I think is the specific terminology that Brian is getting tripped up on, and it's her using specific words and describing certain dynamics that is kind of, I guess, triggering him because, again, she is...
No, it's not. It's triggering. No, it's putting automatic bad faith into these men off the bat. That's the problem though with that particular language. It's saying that these men are evil men and they're looking to do evil things right off the bat. That's what that language suggests. That's why it's triggering to Brian, because you're kind of blanket stating all of these types of relationships are all this way, and it's not the case.
Using the term target and predatory, as in these men are going after these women, these 18-year-old women with malicious intent. And again, I do think there is some validity in her statement, because yes, there are some men that actually, there were a lot of men. And if I can find the number of it, then I will insert a clip here. But Bad Baby, she was in the social atmosphere and doing her thing while she was underage. And she announced that she was going to have an OnlyFans page when she turned 18. And right before her birthday, there was an entire countdown of men just lining up and waiting. And like, you know, like when you're on YouTube and you press notify.
And how is that predatory? They're waiting for the legal limit to where she can show her body, and they just want to see her body. I don't understand how that's predatory. She literally announced it. So let's go with how society works. When you announce something and you kind of boast something and you kind of promote something, guess what? Most people seem to line up and ready to go to that event or whatever, buy those tickets because they want to see it. Just because they want to see something or experience something that someone has been promoting this whole time, how does that make them predatory in a sense? Just because it has to do with an 18-year-old. Like, she is advertising itself that she's gonna do all of these things, and men are always like, well, I think she has a nice body, I want to check it out. Why is that predatory?
Notify me when someone goes live, or notify me when a new video drops. Yeah, men, grown ass men, were hitting the notify button for Bad Baby for the moment that she is 18.
Why does that matter? There is literally a category of corn called teens, because men enjoy looking at younger women because they have nicer bodies at that age. It doesn't mean we want to fucking rape them or, do bad things to them. Why is it always so predatory that men enjoy the things that they enjoy? We just enjoy nice looking women.
For her to launch her 18 and older, page. So I do think that there is some validity. However, I don't think it's going to be fair for you to assume that every man in the world is a predator based on the fact that...
Exactly. That's why the language matters. Unlike you women out there that doesn't care about definition of words. Using those particular words have a certain connotation about the men that it's describing.
They have a preference for younger women.
That happens.
I could actually make this other
very,
argument.
very often.
Actually, so I could make another argument. So a woman who's, say, 33 and still single, she is perhaps, because of, the time clock when it comes to pregnancy, look, you can get pregnant well into your late 30s, 40s. I can actually just make this argument about easier to manipulate. A woman who's a little more pressed to get into a relationship, Agreed. She's easier to manipulate because she's like, time's ticking.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
But Brian, that's with the assumption that these women are limiting themselves with their biological clock. I made a video not too long ago with Vivica Fox still taking applications for her next suitor. Okay, and she's 60 years old. These women are not allowing the biological clock to affect them as much as it should.
You're stupid. I'm going to straight up say it, girl. You're stupid. You're comparing one Vivica Fox that's not able to have kids and men still going for her and she's okay. Most women are not in the same boat. Most women want kids. Most women want a family. So if you cannot have kids anymore and that is what you truly strive for, yes, you're going to be used quite easily if that's what you truly want and you're in a time crunch. I don't understand why this is even an argument.
Should. So no, you cannot use her age against her with the modern day woman.
You're stupid. Just because you're modern women does not mean you guys don't have that internal clock or that internal yearning to want kids. How many women now that are in their 30s I cover stories like this of women in their 30s, 37, 35 that are very, very desperate of getting kids and families right away because they know they can't do it anymore once it passes.
Hold on, let me make the argument.
Okay,
I
go
can
ahead.
manipulate her better because she has a
That's only if she falls
she has
for
a
it.
greater
You can say that about everything, only if they fall for it. Like that doesn't say anything, girl. Like everybody can fall for anything.
Desire.
desire. No, there's another word I'm thinking of. A greater urgency.
Yes.
Because of her greater urgency to enter into a relationship, she must be easier to manipulate.
That example also sounds like you're a gross person.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
That example is not less gross.
Does not make him sound like
But-
gross.
but
Like,
you're saying-
you're making him sound predatory.
But you're saying
Well,
by
he's saying
virtue
that
of
this
somebody's.
person is purposely manipulating a woman that is
No, he's not
close.
manipulating anything.
I'm
He
saying.
used the word
Automatically going to purposely manipulating. All they can see is evil men. Men, evil. Anything that has to do with men, evil.
manipulation.
No. You made the claim that
Semantics.
younger women are easy to manipulate, but I could say that
They are.
right. But hold on, I am making the argument that you could manipulate somebody at an older age for other reasons.
Yes, that's also disgusting.
You can manipulate people at
Right.
any
So
that's-
why?
Correct. That's why is it so apparent now and you keep bringing it up with younger people, with the younger women, because you can do the exact same thing with the older women. So it's not really a true argument. That's why they keep bringing it up, girl.
But that's also not an overwhelming problem in our society.
But why do you jump to the
Neither is
conclusion?
age gap relationships.
Why do you
Yeah,
why do you jump to the conclusion
Why is
that
one-
that a man who
Where?
wants
I got hit on considerably more by older men when I was 16 than when I
okay,
was
not
18.
interested
Not
in
interested,
talking
yeah.
about
We're not talking about that.
yeah, I'm talking
it's the
about
fact of-
adult relationships. So we're talking about
Right,
18
okay,
and over.
so we'll talk fresh
So
18.
young woman means
What does
adult,
fresh
18 and
18
over.
mean?
They just turned 18.
So what? Can they vote?
Yes, but your brain
Yes.
is not fully developed
Then
until
why are
you
you voting?
25.
Then why are you voting?
Okay, so this is the part that I was trying to explain in my monologue, I guess. I believe this is an example of moving the goalpost. And I feel like that's the terminology that's used.
No, girl. It's called going through the logic. Her logic is a certain way, so he's going to use that exact same logic another way to see if it still holds true. That's how you test people's logic.
Used a lot of times in these podcasts and these spaces, but I think that's considered moving the goalpost, right? Like she's
No. It's because women are just so illogical. You can't understand when men are trying to logically understand your position. And when your position, because you say this in your position, so it should hold true in all other aspects of your life. So he pits it against another aspect of your life to make sure that your logic still is the same.
just talking about as far as maturity level and experience level of an 18-year-old, and you're saying, well, why should women vote? Well, in my personal opinion, like, I think that all of us gain experience and mature as we age, or at least we should. Can you guys actually sit here and say that you're the same person with the same thought process and rationale as you were at 18? No. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have had any rights.
No one said you didn't have rights. That's not what the fuck he's talking about. She is talking about a specific logic that because they are so young, they don't have that logic brain to be able to, what, commit to a relationship or to maybe understand the dynamic of an older man versus them. If they don't understand that basic of a relationship, why should they have the knowledge and the ability to vote and do all these other things when they can't even do the basics of picking men? That's the logic that's being tested right now.
Because it's different.
Why?
How's it different?
Because Okay, so first of all,
So
that
you
law
can- so you
is
can vote
that-
to affect my
do you know
life?
do you know why that law is set into place and why 18 is considered an adult? It's so that they can enlist young people into the military because
Wait, young
based on
people?
our physical
Young
Men.
people or young or men?
men,
Okay.
young
Just
men
wa- just
into the
wanted to
military
clarify that, not
because
people.
at 18
Men.
is when they are physically able to serve.
Nope.
That is based
Actually,
on
16-year-olds.
It is not. It is not based off of. Oh, 18 is fully formed. Your brain is not fully
Wait,
formed
so just
until
to be clear,
25.
you're fine.
Now, I'm not
Wait.
saying that any
Let her finish.
26-year-old going for an 18-year-old is predatory and problematic. However, that is a big issue that I do see often. I do see a lot of women, young women, 18 women.
Women want men that are experienced, that can lead them. Very few people their same age, especially at 18, have had those experiences to be able to lead and to be able to be a solid man. So it makes sense that women gravitates towards older men. It's just, it is what it is. It's not even that men truly gravitate towards younger women. Men just gravitate towards whatever the fuck we can gravitate towards. Women are actually the one that are very often picking older men because they have the selection.
Fresh into the dating scene, getting taken advantage of by 30-year-olds.
How do you know
Great.
they're
That is
getting...
so
What
common.
evidence do you have that they're getting taken advantage of? Is it simply by virtue of them
Their
dating?
experience.
How is that?
And they
How do you
speak
know
about
what their
it.
experience
How is
is?
that?
And they speak about it, and abusers and groomers specifically have been interviewed and have talked
Again,
about the
it's-
fact that
it's
they
the
go for
loaded
younger women
language.
because they're easier to mold.
You have to stop making every man as if they're like being a predator.
Actually, I'm willing
I
to
don't
totally.
believe every man is.
I'm totally
But-
willing to engage
Exactly,
with
it's
this. I
just
think.
loaded
That,
language.
But a lot, but it is
I
a
think
problem.
at this point, I think
Look,
this point is fine.
It's just a
Not all
stereotype
men,
that's
not
being
all,
put
not
out
all
there.
men are abusers. Not all men are rapists. But
Yeah, let's not
overwhelming
use that word.
majority of women have had a negative experience with a man.
Totally
And
agree.
That is
so,
fact.
so let's
Agreed.
back up.
Again, because you guys are all dealing with very similar men and the very small pool of men. That's why most of your women's experiences are very similar.
I want to make sure I understand.
So again, her statement is valid. Most women, whenever they're experiencing any type of abuse or SA, it is at the hands of a man.
And again, I'm going to say it's going to be a very small group of men. Stop blanketing men. There's always bad men, and bad men do bad things to us men also.
You know, because like that's the way that sex and attraction works most of the time. But that does not mean that you should go treating every man as if he's a predator or, you know, out there to get you. And I think that is the issue that we're having in modern day society. And that's why there are so many women that are opting for the bear in the man versus bear scenario. Like, who would you rather get lost in the...
Yeah, because you guys are idiots. You guys can't logically think that I've been living my whole life this time with men in society this whole time, and I lived a pretty okay life. Yeah, I've had a little bit of incidents of certain men, but I had a pretty damn okay life. But when you put yourself with a bear, you're fucked. But women can't seem to understand that because their fear of men is so great that they rather be with wild beasts than men.
force with.
When should women be considered adults?
I think women should be considered an adult and making adult decisions probably around 25.
Because of the prefrontal lobe?
I would, because of the prefrontal lobe, yes.
The prefrontal lobe that begins to
See,
degrade.
it's like, as she's hearing this, she should understand that, oh, that's what he was trying to test. Is the logic of if women can't make these type of decisions until 26, then why are they able to vote? Why are they able to do all of these other things that actually affect other people's lives? If they're that age.
Grading immediately after 25.
I believe that
Hang on.
a woman
The
who's
prefrontal
25
lobe-
is very different
Okay,
than a
hang
girl
on, hang
who's
on.
18. That's
Hang on.
so
Why?
different. Wildly different. They
Why?
have wildly different viewpoints.
Why are they different at 25?
They're inexperienced.
Okay, but
They have
no,
not
that's not what you
experienced
said.
lobe.
Wait.
And the prefrontal lobe is also a
okay,
factor.
so hang on. You, if you're going to make this justification, I need you to actually make it.
Okay.
Are you an adult at 25 because your prefrontal lobe is fully developed?
I would say that's a factor. It's also experience.
Okay, but experience is...
And I would say-
Hang on.
It's a
A
direct.
21-year-old
Experience
is like a young adult.
But experience is arbitrary. You can have 19, 18-year-olds
Yeah.
far more experience than 25-year-olds.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is a factor, for
because
sure.
that is so, there's no way that we could base adulthood on experience. There would be no test we could give for experience.
Correct.
No.
So if you're looking for physicality, the prefrontal lobe is it?
For physicality, yes.
Well, then if that is the case, don't you think that women should not be able to vote until 25?
I wouldn't say women should.
She gives this look as soon as he says that. That's the logic base. If women are not smart enough or not capable enough of making decisions to be in a age gap relationship at 18 because their brain isn't developed until they're 25, then why are they allowed to vote? Because your logic is saying that women are so dumb or so naive or so inexperienced at 18, they can't judge certain things. But if they can't judge some things like a relationship, how are they able to judge a whole nation of where a nation should lead?
Shouldn't be able to vote. I would say.
Well, we're talking about
People-
women being able to consent. So you don't.
Again, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not fully up to date with all of the different terminologies, but is this moving the goalpost or
It isn't.
shifting the goalpost? Is
No, he's testing logic. This is the problem that women seem to no. Women can't understand the us testing logic thing because even in the panels, I watch whatever podcast all the time. Again, I don't react to them too much just because it's a little boring, but I learn a lot from it. And no, it's testing logical. If I am not smart enough to be in an age gap relationship because I can get taken advantage of at 18, then why am I voting at 18? And if I'm not smart enough to make those decisions until my prefrontal cortex, whatever lobe, is developed at 25, 26, then isn't that when you should be able to vote and do all these other things? That's what the logic is.
it? Because I don't think this entire argument or conversation started off with voting and
It's not. And it's not about these things. It's about her thought process of what is the issue? Is the issue, oh, they're inexperienced and they don't know better because they're 18? That means they're young, right? Their prefrontal cortex is not developed. So if they're not developed, then why should we give them the right to vote if they're not fully developed? That's the logic-based test. But you're going to say, no, you should be able to vote because women want the rights to vote no matter what. But even though you should be able to vote at 18, but you're not smart enough to not be taken advantage of by an age gap relationship. That's the logic. A whole nation that you get to vote on versus your own personal life that you can't even control. How can you control voting for a nation?
maturation and adulthood. It started off because she said it was an ick of hers when older men in their 30s, are attracted to 18-year-old girls. For her, that is a red flag. And to me, everyone's allowed to have their own personal preference.
No, you are correct on that one, girl. Everyone is allowed to have their own personal preference. But when you go online and spout these things and say these things, you just put men into a predatory state. That's the problem that we have when women say these things out loud on these types of things. We understand that there's bad men. They understand that how women usually feel. We get that.
If you don't want to date men that only date young women, for example, Leonardo DiCaprio, everybody knows, he gets rid of his girlfriend as soon as they turn 25. He's a 50-year-old man.
So?
But again, because he's a handsome guy with a lot of money, a lot of people will look past that. So
it's not a lot of... It's the women themselves that pick the man, do they not? The women have access to sex. They allow these things. So they the ones that are wanting the man in the first place. That's... Gotta think. For women to open up their legs, they have to like that man or want that man in some way, shape, or form. These men aren't just going to young women and just like, give me your cat and I'm going to blow it out. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? These women want these men too.
anyways, I know I'm going on a tangent, but I think personal preferences, it's whatever. And whatever her...
It's always whatever when women have it, right? But when we say our personal preference, oh, we don't want, a big girl. We don't want all these things. Then it becomes a problem.
reason is so be it, because at the end of the day, your personal preference is only going to limit the amount of people that you're going to be interested in. So whatever.
I think they should be able to consent until they're 25.
I think voting, I'm not saying that no one can consent. I'm not saying no one can
but
vote.
I thought they weren't adults.
I'm not saying that every single...
See, like, that's the logic, girl. They seem to think that 18-year-olds are not adult enough to make logical decisions of the men they should be with. If they can't make that logical decisions, they should not be able to make a logical decision of where the country goes. It just kind of makes sense in that logic.
Woman that is 30, she's 18, he's a 30-year-old. I'm not saying every single instance
I'm not saying
is
that
a
either.
woman getting taken advantage of.
I'm just following your logic. Are they adults at 25
You're
or
not, because
before?
I feel like you're making a very broad blanket statement,
Because
and I'm not making a broad blanket statement. I'm saying this is a problem that is happening. There are men that are doing this. Not all men.
So when are women adults? When?
I don't think her personal preference is a broad
I would
statement.
say human. I would consider an adult woman 25.
If
her personal preference was a broad statement, she said that she thinks that age gap relationships are predatory against the woman. That men are predatory. That's blanket statementing men.
you consider them to only be adults at 25, why the fuck would you ever advocate that men or women can ever make any decision which would impact their life in the long term before the age of 25?
There you go, girl. That's the logic.
Because that's just the world we live in.
That's not an answer.
And also, but the age...
It's crazy to me that the witch, I think that's what they called her in the episode, she's a witch, she believes in witchcraft. It's crazy to me that she believes in freedom of choice more than he does. She is clearly expressing a preference of hers, and he's trying to put it into law.
Is also not 18.
He's not trying to put it into... Oh my God, girl. You guys literally do not have logical thoughts. He's not putting it into law. He's trying to compare if the law says that 18-year-olds are able to do these things. Now all of a sudden women say no because our frontal cortex or frontal lobe isn't developed until 25, 26. Then wouldn't laws reflect that? That's what he's trying to say. It's logic.
It depends state to state. It's very, very different.
Yeah, but I would guess that you would want to eliminate that for non-adults, right?
It depends on the age range. I think
She didn't say that, but it's the following of logic.
18-year-old having sex with an 18-year-old is very different than a 30-year-old having sex with an 18-year-old.
We'll go with that.
I think it's very, very different
dynamic. Yeah, we'll go with that. But if you're not smart enough or competent enough or experienced enough to make a decision about who you want to sleep with...
There you go, girl. That's the logic right there. If you can't even make that simple decision because your frontal lobe hasn't developed, how are you making decisions to go to war and shit like that?
Regardless of their age, why the fuck would we give you consent to sleep with anyone? You're not experienced enough to make those decisions, right?
Because it doesn't apply to all, and I'm not saying it applies to all. Again, I never said every single...
You did say all.
I've never said every single
I asked you when all women are adults. When are all of them adults?
I guess, okay, then I'll rechange my statement. It depends on the person. It depends
so
on
how could you ever create a metric for it then?
Exactly.
I think...
So you get it, girl? She doesn't have a solid form of why it's a problem. She just says, oh, because they're not adults or they're not experienced enough. So in a sense, if that's the basis of why it's taking advantage of them, 18-year-olds can have just as much experience as some 30-year-olds. That's what he's trying to say. All of these things is all testing the exact same logic.
That people who are 25 should be going for people who are around the same age range. I think it's a very huge red flag when men who are 23 and older are going for 18-year-olds, especially 18-year-olds there's 18-year-olds that are still in high school.
So?
They're graduating high school. So you think someone in high school should date?
That's so, you know what I mean? Like that right there is what I mean by... That's when the red pill or the manosphere kind of lose me. It's like the extreme.
It's not. She said it herself. They're 18. They're adults. They're able to make their own decisions. If that's what you want to give to people and women, the ability, I'm able to do these own decisions myself, then there should be an age range properly to do that, right? And we set it at 18. So if we set it at 18 and women are saying, oh, but you're 18, you're not smart enough, you're not still not, Doesn't matter if you're in high school still or not. You're still of right age. That's legal.
Okay. It's like, and again, 20, 23, dating an 18-year-old, I don't see that big of a deal. So, yeah, that is kind of a so. But a 35-year-old and an 18-year-old.
When are they adults?
It's weird. That's
Why
all
is
I'm
it?
saying.
What makes it? Okay, let's get into this.
It's gross. It's weird.
Just saying,
and I
it
think
gives you
that
the ick.
that's valid.
It gives you the ick.
Yeah, it gives
Can
me
you give me an
the
actual
ick.
argument other than gives me the ick? Like an actual argument for why this is wrong.
Yes, it puts a lot of women, and having that blanket, it puts a lot of women in very, very uncomfortable situations.
What are all the women that it
Okay,
puts
but that's you haven't.
to be
Hang
in
on.
that
Every relationship.
I hope you understand this. Like, her logic of why it's her preference doesn't even have a grounds of base on anything. It just gives her the ick. Her feelings about it is eh. He's trying to test, why is it eh? Is it because they're underage? Is it because they're dumb? Is it because they're not smart enough to make these decisions? Is this because they're not experienced enough of these decisions? He's trying to pinpoint what the ick is about it.
Can do that.
They are choosing to make that decision.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that it's not gross. That doesn't mean that men that are purposely 30 years old targeting 18-year-olds are not a problem.
Should,
Doesn't
do you
mean they're
think?
not a gross
Do you
human
think
being.
that based on the fact
Just
that
because they legally can.
okay,
doesn't
do you
mean-
think? Do you think that you should be able to outlaw it?
No.
Well, then how much of a problem could it be? Don't you
It's
usually
something-
outlaw behavior
all
that's
I said
problematic?
was gross. I said ew.
Is it
I
just duck?
disagreed with it. I can.
See, okay, and that's what I mean by they lose me when they get too extreme, because now, once again, Andrew is the one that is introducing the idea of it being outlaw. She said it was an ick. She said it was a red flag for her, and that is just...
And then she explained that men are predatory and women are getting taken advantage of. And women are in a horrible position in this. She blanket statement this whole type of dynamic of relationships. And this is why he is saying, if this is such a problem, shouldn't it be outlawed? If it was a real problem, it would have been outlawed, but it's not a real problem. It's just your women's feelings of ick, but you seem to still project it, write stories and articles about it, shaming men.
her opinion. I don't understand why her morality is to dictate all of America. And this is what bothers me about the Whatever podcast, or at least Andrew, is that...
No, you just... Girl, they're testing logic. That's all they've been testing this whole time. And I don't know, the Whatever... I literally watch the podcast every day. Andrew does a very good job of testing logic. Because if you think A plus B equals C, then A plus B should equal C every single time. Doesn't matter if we place things in that formula or not. That's what he's trying to say. But when we test their logic and say something else slightly different, it changes. They start thinking, oh, no. They should be able to, they're smart enough to do these things. They're able to do these things. But if they're able to do these things, why is it an ick? Because they're able to do it. They're able to make these logical decisions. It's just your own feelings.
Sometimes I feel like he is trying to make an argument when there is just a conversation.
Again, because you feel. It's not what you actually see and logically think.
She is just sharing her preference and her ideas on whatever it is. Because earlier in the conversation, he was saying that it's a red flag for flight attendants. And actually, I think they're going to touch back on it again. So before I jump the gun, I'll save that. But again, I don't understand why her morality...
Because when he said flight attendant, he had a perfectly good reason and a logical reason behind it. Because 1, they travel a lot. 2, they're very promiscuous. And 3, there's other things I don't remember, but those are the reasons. What's her reason? Ew. How is that proper? So you just go about telling people you shouldn't do things because ew.
He has to dictate.
There has to be some logic
laws,
behind it.
And I don't know if Andrew thinks that his baseline should be grounds for laws. So
no.
Disagree with an opinion. That doesn't mean we're going to base a law off of mine.
We're not making laws. We're not pretending there's laws or anything. It's just
opinion.
I can't even.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I don't speak for an entire country.
Okay, so you don't think...
I speak for me.
So
and I think that that's gross.
Yeah, you just think it's icky.
I think that's extremely...
See, that's where he's testing. He got to where it needed to be, girl. That's the true reason of why she thinks that it's bad. It's because it feels icky. Originally, she said, oh, it's predatory. It's all of these other things before he got to the point where she said it's icky. That's where the going through logic goes through, because she doesn't really truly think those things. She just thinks it's icky.
Icky.
Yeah, sure. But you don't actually have an argument.
Any 18-year-old, 19-year-old women that are watching this podcast,
I agree.
I would steer clear from men. I would say most men who are like 23 trying to date 18-year-olds, it's because they're unable to get women their own age because they lack maturity.
So let's move it back, okay, before you go off on these other diatribes, and we'll just stick with the one. Can you actually make a moral argument for why it would be wrong for a 30-year-old man to date an 18-year-old girl?
Your preferences doesn't have to be based on morals.
They both consent to
Surprise.
No, it's like a red
Your preferences should be based on something.
flag. So it's not like, it's kind of like you were saying with like a flight attendant. It's a red flag because there is flight attendants that maybe aren't sleeping with a bunch of guys, but there is a stereotype there that most of them are sleeping with a lot of guys. So no, not all 30-year-olds who are dating 18-year-olds have negative intentions. However, I would say a lot do. There is a stereotype.
Yeah, but I would make it.
There is a
I'm
lot
going to give you the caveat distinction. I would say that a flight attendant who is sleeping with a lot of men is doing something immoral.
Pause, because again, already within your first statement, like just setting up your statement, you said a flight attendant that is sleeping with a lot of guys. So of course you have a moral grounds for that, but you can't just say flight attendants equal sleep with a lot of men.
And you also can't just say men are predatory in age gap relationships because that's where he's getting at. There should be, if you're going to call men predatory and men all these things within these relationship confines, there should be a logical reason why other than ew.
And that's what you've tried to do in previous conversations, and that's what you've tried to do earlier in this conversation. So again, I'm going to run it back in case anyone did miss it. He said a flight attendant that is sleeping with a lot of guys.
No, not all 30-year-olds who are dating 18-year-olds have negative intentions. However, I would say a lot do. There is a stereotype.
Yeah, but I would
make it. There is a
I'm
lot
going to give you the caveat distinction. I would say that a flight attendant who is sleeping with a lot of men is doing something immoral.
Right.
Girl, you didn't prove anything. Like, he's trying to get to the moral and the real reasoning of why it is. So there is a logic reason of morality why we don't want to pick flight attendants. So it's actually based on grounds of something. Where she doesn't like the age gap relationship because it's ew.
Yeah, because she's a whore. Yeah, a flight attendant or a bus driver or a teacher or the president. If you're sleeping with a lot of people, you're a whore. It is immoral. Got it. But flight attendants already have that stereotype. So you're not making a distinguishment with morality in your statement. Again, it's like saying...
We're not trying to make the distinction of the flight attendant. We're trying to make the distinction of men and women and age gap relationship. They seem to think that it's immoral some way, in some way, shape, or form, but it's not. And we're trying to test that moral logic.
All 30-year-old men that are predatory, like if that was the setup, right? And that's why she kept saying, no, not all men are predatory. Not all men are, like targeting young women, but the ones that are targeting. So again, it's very selective.
No, girl. She's blanket stating that most of these types of relationships are like that. She's saying some aren't. I agree. But she's kind of blanket statement that most relationships like this are going to be predatory.
Words. And I hate that I'm getting down the rabbit hole of semantics, but you guys know what I mean.
An advantage of an 18-year-old.
Yeah, so I'm asking you to make moral argument like I just did.
Right.
That thing, immoral.
That's why he's asking. If you have no moral argument about it, then it's just ew. Then shut the fuck up.
What about 30-year-old with 18-year-olds actually immoral?
When they're both consenting.
Yeah. What about flight attendants are immoral?
He just said it. They sleep around. The fuck are you talking about? You literally agreed to it earlier.
Just the profession of being a flight attendant. What is so immoral about that?
He did not say anything about that. He said the ones that sleep around. Why?
nothing. Is the caveat that you had provided of her already sleeping around. It's the flight attendant that sleeps around.
It's just really the fact that you don't see a problem with it is insane.
Just say it's icky.
It's insane to me.
See, that's the problem. She thinks it's icky, and she just thinks everybody else should feel the exact same way. And she can't explain why she feels that way. How can you tell me how to feel if you don't even understand why you feel that way?
It's icky.
It's just a clarification, because I like...
So he just wants her to say it's icky. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, I don't think that she was saying that all men. I think it was just her choice of words, because I want to share another clip with you guys, and you guys let me know how you feel about it, okay?
What age range you want to date?
Oh, legal age.
Legal age? What the hell that mean, Joseph? That don't sound good.
18 and up.
Joseph, you 35. What you gonna do with an 18-year-old? I'm 35. I don't know 18-year-old. We the same age.
Oh, I didn't know that, but 18 is legal, you know?
So guys, giving your honest...
Shut up. It is just logically what men want, young women, and the youngest we can go is 18. So logically he would say, I want as young as I can. How does that make him predatory? It's just like women say, I want a rich man. I want the richest one I can. Men don't care about money. We care about beauty and looks. And the younger they are, that's what they have for them.
Opinion on what you thought about that clip.
It was awkward. I'm not saying it wasn't awkward and that guy was a little creepy, but
I just wanted to include that clip in today's conversation because that is something that bothers me within the manosphere or red pill talking space, especially with people like Andrew Wilson, people who are too extreme. I think having a conversation with him would be setting yourself up for failure, because unless you agree with him, he is going to...
No, he tests your logic. If your logic does not translate to almost every thought process of other events and things, then your logic is flawed.
To either shift the goalposts or just talk about things without understanding the nuances in certain situations, okay?
I think she did this video thinking this was an own on Andrew Wilson, but she kind of just owned herself a little bit.
So anyways, I think that if a girl has a preference of dating people within a certain age range, that is up to her. If men...
You are correct. That wasn't her preference. She literally said she doesn't like it because it's predatory and men that do this are predators. She never said that my preference, I just don't like it. She literally called men predators for doing it. That's the problem we have, and that's what you're not seeing, girl. You just seem to be on the sisterhood side about a lot of shit.
And have a preference of dating younger women, that is up to them. So I think it's really disingenuous.
No,
for
you're
Brian
disingenuous.
And Andrew to talk about the dynamics as if there is no instances where things can become toxic or...
We never said that there isn't, but women seem to portray it that every single relationship is going to be that way. That's the problem we have. We always acknowledge that there's bad men, bad people. We say it all the time.
The power dynamics that can become disadvantage for one person or the other. Okay, like there's a whole documentary on the Playboy Mansion and Hugh Hefner and the Playboy Bunnies and the things that these girls would do, the situations that they would get themselves into, and I'm not...
And they chose this. Again, they wanted the money and they wanted the fame. They wanted to be with fucking a top tier man.
Using it, because at the end of the day, they are 18-year-old adults. But you also have to understand that there are certain power dynamics. I mean, again, with the Cassie and P. Diddy, she was an adult when she was dating Diddy. But are we all going to just sit here and say that she deserved everything that was brought upon her by Diddy?
When do we say that?
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean by, like, people are, like, within these particular communities tend to end up being so rigid within their own ideologies, within their own rules.
No, we just test women's logic because women say men equal bad. And then we ask them, why are men bad? And most of the time, they can't really explain it. That's logic testing. Oh, age gap relationship bad. They didn't say, I don't like it because it's my preference. She just literally said it was bad, it's predatory. Okay, why is it bad and predatory? Oh, because you're taking advantage of a person because they're inexperienced. Okay, we literally go by every single talking point that they speak, saying, "Oh, inexperience." So now it's experience that determines if someone is smart enough to date date people or what? Okay, no. It's about prefrontal cortex. Oh, okay. If that is the case, then anybody before their prefrontal cortex that are developed, should they have other rights, like voting and things like that, when they can't even make logical decisions about their own relationship? That's the logic. Sorry, girl, I probably went in a little hard, but I just think you try to own Andrew Wilson in this particular thingy. He didn't move the goalpost. The goalpost was always just to test her logic. Why is it the woman's always getting taken advantage of? That's the problem. Please exert them below. I really appreciate that. Catch you guys next time.